प्रसार भारती अभिलेखागार की प्रस्तुति सदाबहार सुनहरे दौर का अनमोल खजाना।
Growing up, I think it's a bad word. I don't think growing up means that leaving childhood behind. I think growing up is taking your childhood with you as a grown-up. That you can be old, a baby, a boy, and an adult, and keep on changing which one of that part comes up. But if you're only one, if you get stuck to only one mode of being, I think that is rigid or silly. One says that in neurosis also. If you have all the neuroses, then you are healthy. If you have only one, that is when you become sick. My father was the eldest son of his family, and I was the eldest son of the eldest son. So those kind of, in the larger family, I also had a certain position. Then also my father was posted in small provincial towns in Punjab. So he was the magistrate Saab, and in those days magistrate Saab was a great man. So, and I was kind of made very great fuss of. So there was this great feeling of being absolutely at the center of the world, and I struggled, avoided a lot, that not to get this grandiose feeling come up, which often makes me, as people tell me, much more shyer otherwise in conversations and company. I want to kind of change the subject away from myself to others, perhaps because I fear the breakthrough of that grandiosity. I think so. That is, my shyness is based on that fear of, I think, from that early childhood one. This is a bunch of old letters which my father kept, and many of them are to him. We were away from him, mother, myself. And the first one is when I was 5 years old. We are in Lahore with my grandparents, that's me and my mother, and my father is in a place called Sargodha, which is now in Pakistan. And this is just 2 days after the birth of my sister. मेरे प्यारे डैडी जी, आपका खत मिला, पढ़कर बहुत खुशी, इट्स नॉट खुशी, खुशी हुई। भ्राता, दिस इज माय टीचर, से कहना कि सुधीर कहता है कि 6-7 दिन तक आ जाएंगे। पढ़ाई की यहाँ बात है कि किताबें यहाँ नहीं हैं। सुधा की बात है, दैट इज़ माय सिस्टर्स नेम, और इट वाज एट दैट टाइम, इट गॉट चेंज लेटर, कि बदन पर पित्त जैसी कोई चीज़ निकल आई। द अदर लेटर्स, नेक्स्ट वंस आर when I went to boarding school for 1 year. I think I was 8 years old. My parents were Rohtak, and I was sent to modern school in Delhi. And I think these are pretty sad letters. Many of them are in Urdu, which I wrote at that time, but I can't read just now. I think the first image, the immediate image which flashes through my mind is my mother standing in front of the mirror. She's dressing out to go to a party, and she's looking absolutely beautiful, and I can even smell the scent. I mean, so that is the first visual image which stands. She's admiring herself before the mirror, preening herself, and kind of I'm looking up and admiring her with the great devotion which a small child is capable of, or a small boy is capable of towards the mother. That is, I think, my immediate visual memory which comes.
He was very thin, he was extremely thin, and he had a lot of curly hair. But what I remember very strongly are his eyes. Very limpid, liquid eyes. Yes. He used to play a lot and also read a lot. I remember him for hours either reading or playing. I remember my father would get upset about his playing so much and reading a lot, but studying, he thought he didn't give enough time to his studies, but then all parents think that way.
So on one side was this kind of formality, which is my mother's side, a reserve, a sense of boundaries, individual distance, a much greater sense of what is right and wrong. And on the other side were my father's family, where there were really no boundaries. You slept wherever you could, and you went with whoever there was, uncle, aunt, there wasn't too much difference made between whose child you are, your own, somebody else's. You ate at whatever time you liked. So there was much greater informality of that kind. But also I think much more where right and wrong were contextual. It depends. There was a much greater sense of it depends. So for a child, much, much nicer place. So these were the two very big differences. And I think I carried both of them and still do in some way.
Akhtar? Medan? Shampoo. थोड़ा बनी गया ना
What was the private world here, which was happening at that time? I think partly it was that being in that boarding school. I mean, they were all kind of, for the first time you met other boys, they were other, you heard things about their parents which was not the same as yours. You kind of started realizing that parents are not always benevolent, they can be cruel also. So you started looking for signs of cruelty, perhaps in your own kind of, or interpreted some things like that. That is the memories of violence of the kinds of, and kind of gratuitous violence of older boys beating up younger ones, and of the demeaning part of the kind of go and polish their shoes. You are asked to, there's a great deal of sadism in boys, and boarding schools are full of sadism. And that is, was one of my, after that, never to send my son ever to a boarding school. So it must have really made a strong effect, or left a strong impression on you.
I think I must have been about 6 or so, and he's a little older, 4 years or older. We went to a magic show. It was that famous Gogia Pasha's magic show. And there, he was showing us the magic. He brought this woman and then said that he would cut off the tongue. And, it was magic brought together. Now there, suddenly, in the dead silence of the hall, the magic began, and this lady's tongue was cut off. And to my horror, what do I see? My brother beside me, my elder brother, who's chaperoning me to this place, has suddenly fainted. Flat! And I forgot all about the magic show. I didn't know what to do. I was just looking here and there till we found the gentleman. I mean, he couldn't take, well, there wasn't really blood, but I mean, maybe perhaps his imagining of that bloodshed or any kind of, I remember this, this kind of, not really cruelty, but very strong scenes. He just couldn't take. That I remember.
To be angry at one's childhood basically means to feel abandoned, rejected. But these are not very kind of gross abandonments, somebody going away, parents going away, or somebody saying, I don't like you. We're talking about much more subtle ones of some eyes which do not light up. And then of course the anger, if your experience is denied. No, you feel like this. No, you think like that. Which is denying your experience, and the experience of the parents is being imposed, and then you feel kind of claustrophobic, being caught in a wedge, and you want to break away. So the anger has lots of these kind of sources of your, let's say, your authenticity being denied, your authenticity being questioned, and you are a child, and you are in a complete fix because you love the people who are doing it. You cannot afford to be angry. So the anger has to remain hidden for a long, long time. Nights sleeping up on the roofs, because one used to sleep with the family and under the mosquito net and with the stars and the moon and everything above. So that enclosure in that mosquito net, cool nights on the roof of these bungalows in small towns with my parents, my sister sleeping around me, that is the kind of space which gives me very kind of very warm feelings, although it is cool. But that's a movable space, it's not one space, because since we got transferred, so these beds can be anywhere and these mosquito nets can be anywhere and those roofs can be anywhere. But it is the people who move with them which make up the space rather than the original space itself. I entered my adolescence pretty late. In the sense of that I tried to ignore the body for a long time, bodily changes. I was very busy in sports all the time. I think it was perhaps also encouraged by parents that you play sports, that you don't have to get bad thoughts. I think my bodily changes, I think I was shocked when first time what is called night emission occurred. I felt so embarrassed, not shocked, that my God, my mother would see it, my parents would see it, what would they think? I think I was busy washing the sheet before they woke up in the morning or something, so that was awful. But the main thing I think occurred was later, when I started thinking about my own space in the world, what was I going to do? So the decisions were made for you. And the first time I started, I think, questioning those, not the decisions, but questioning not even their wisdom, but questioning, just questioning, is this what I want to do? I think that is the start, I would say, the start of my adolescence. Psychology or psychoanalysis, it's not important of what has happened to you. That is objective kind of thing. But what you think has happened to you. People come to analysis with a story about their childhood. Different memories linked together with a certain kind of perspective. And then as the memories resurface, more information from the past, from the childhood, regarding these memories other memories come up. Then the story starts to subtly shift and change. I went through analysis also for about 5 years, which is kind of a normal analytical time. And there are not really kind of very big discoveries you make. I think this is what we get from movies or old movies of what analysis is about, that suddenly one repressed memory comes up and everything is then according to that you understand your life because of one thing. These are kind of small things, and how they add up, which is what changes you. So it is not the kind of one trauma, but kind of cumulative traumas which make the difference. So yes, things for me changed, but it was not a change which I noticed kind of, today it has changed, or tomorrow it was going to change, or yesterday it changed. It is a slow, incremental process. What it did for me was, well, to give me, I think, a better perspective on some of the things which I felt had happened to me. I did feel that there were forces outside which were affecting me much more strongly than they actually were, which includes family pressures, my expectations of my parents, of my father about me, etc. Those became less and less in weight. I discovered that they really were not. It was my not fears, but my wish to please my father so much, etc., that I was kind of much more contributing to that. So my contributions to those kind of things, of the expectations of the parents rather than their expectations themselves. So that did give me more freedom of choice, that it wasn't such a kind of prison in which I was.
Hello, Penguin. Wrong number, sorry.
I don't think growing up means that leaving childhood behind. I think growing up is taking your childhood with you as a grown-up, which means not as something separate from you, something which belonged to me a long time ago, that it doesn't belong to me anymore. No, but to take that child with you in the present living kind of way of the child's feelings, the child's openness, the child's even vulnerabilities, the child's sensitivities. So to kind of the child's way of experiencing, that intense way of experiencing. And I think that is kind of, if analysis is any good, is not really of, I don't think of, there are yes goals of reducing anxiety, being able to deal with the world and all. But I think the real goal for me would be how to experience intensely. Experience as Bjorn called it. That would be the experiencing of experience. That capacity, that I hope analysis gives. It doesn't give it from outside. It kind of recovers it from one's own childhood.
Did you get my letter? Oh, because I think I have, I thought you might have got the letter. Maybe you'll get it today. I mailed it the day before. Acha. I mean, my unhappiness is all in there in the letter. so, yeah. I'm in town, so, yeah, I mean, give me a call after you get the letter, because I've expressed my various unhappinesses, and if you still want to have lunch, we'll have lunch. Okay? All right.
What do I miss of my childhood? Actually, I think just the food. I think the food tasted much better. My taste buds are much more developed, or they've got kind of jaded now. So actually the food is, even the ordinary dal used to taste much better. So I think I miss the intensity of taste buds. I think that is the one I miss the most of my childhood. Wasps. Or do they buzz? Something buzz. I was bitten very badly by, I still have the marks here, a nest of wasps which we were cleaning, my father together, and I think just before I was bitten there was this sound of buzzing, strong buzzing. So that would be the sound which I would remember. The interesting part, of course, of adolescence boys is of the power which you feel you don't have over your own body, that the girls have that power over your body. As far as the other sex was concerned, there was no contact at all, because in those days the schools were segregated, then I went to college which was segregated. So they were kind of very strange and very formidable beings. Admired them, wanted them, yearned, but had no idea what to do. But you needed certain kind of inaccessible objects really. Which one was the first one? I think Nargis. No, Madhubala, of course. Madhubala is the one who was this kind of not the stuff dreams are made of, but the dreams the stuff is made of really. So she was, of course, the center of fantasies much more. And but as I said, I tried to kind of do the brahmachari business of playing sports exercise stuff to keep away all those fantasies and thoughts. Unsuccessfully, like most brahmacharis, but that's how it went. Besides the longing and protective indulgence, the third element in the Indian ideology is a celebration, even an idealization of the child and childhood. In the most powerful surviving literary tradition of northern and central India, for instance, such poets of the Bhakti movement as Surdas and Tulsidas have placed childhood close to the center of poetic consciousness and creativity. Surdas, in fact, composed 500 verses on Krishna's childhood alone. Indeed, in this poetry, the celebration of the divine takes place through the metaphor of celebrations of the child. The aspects that are admiringly emphasized as divine attributes are the child's freedom and spontaneity, his simplicity, charm, and delight itself. In an adult-centered world that overvalues abstractions, prudence, and reason, it is refreshing to find popular Indian poetry celebrating such childlike virtues as intensity and vivaciousness, capacity for sorrow and delight, mercurial anger, and an equally quick readiness to forgive and forget injuries. In the Indian vision, these qualities are not seen as childish, to be socialized out of existence, but valuable attributes of humans of all ages, since they are an expression of the divine. Well, the Hindi popular cinema has been very important to me. It is a child cinema, and it kind of evokes responses which are very like children. Quick identification, because the characters are never complex. The villains are always villainous, the heroes are heroic, the heroines are always very heroine looking, so that there are no kind of complexities and the mixed up kind of people we all are in real life. And that is very good for the child to come up. And I think I have always been interested in Hindi cinema as a link to childhood and a link to the childhood. As a child, of course, you think it is the adult's world. That's the interesting part of it, because they all look adult, and you think maybe that's what the adult world is like. But you discover only later that it is an adult world seen through child's eyes. So I used to slip into and watch movies, the matinee shows mostly. And so I've seen some movies 16 times, 14 times, Ratan, Shikari. So I remember those movies with great pleasure. And one of my, unfortunately, regrets has remained that when all the older boys and men used to kind of whistle whenever some good scene was there, and especially if some very lovely young woman was there, that I could never learn that. And I have to do this, either the O one or this one. I've never learned it, but I still want to make that up. So that is a very happy memory of watching all those wonderful movies and being in this dark theater and in the theater of imagination, really. For me, of course, as a child, these were promise of youth. This is what would be wonderful to be, like all these young men around me who kind of sit lolled back in the seats, give a whistle when something occurs, give comments, and the kind of ease and control of the world which they display, which I'm sure they didn't have in their real lives, but in the cinema hall, of course, so that was a control which I envied and wanted myself. In partition riots, we were in Rohtak, and the main thing was that a lot of family members of my father's family, they were all there. I was 9 years old. I just turned 9. And there were a lot of stories which were told about what happened from the places they came in, Lahore, Sialkot. It was not only personal stories, it's also stories they had heard. And I think telling stories of what has happened was very, very important for them therapeutically to deal with the things. So as a child, I heard lots of stories of kind of great cruelties, great atrocities. And I think I shared, as a child must, the whole consternation, the anger of all these adults. I think I shared at that time also the feeling of how can adults feel so helpless. So that must have been scaring for a child, that the adults can feel so helpless, that they can be driven away, their lives completely turned upside down. The servant's name was Chetram, so we went to the bazaar. Which town it was, again, they kind of all get mixed up, whether Sagoda, Rohtak, I have no idea. But he was getting all kind of things tattooed, wonderful butterflies with colors, and I insisted that I also wanted a tattoo. So they tried to dissuade me, but after all, I was the little master, so it had to be done. So the tattoo man started. So first he started much too near, so he had to kind of rub it out. He tried to make an ohm out of it. Then he started here and he asked my name, so I kind of stammered a little and I said Sudhir Kakar, and by the time I did the second case, 2 Ks had already come in. I'm glad that I didn't stammer much, otherwise there would have been 3 or 4 Ks here. And of course when I came back, my parents were furious. That was a very low class thing to do. And I'm afraid Chetram got the boot. He was sacked. I felt a bit bad about it since I had insisted. But well, this is something I'm stuck with since many years ago. The only advantage people tell me is that I won't get lost. They'll always find me. I moved from place to place. In fact, the longest I stayed in a place till my adulthood was Germany, Mannheim, in a place for 5 years, 4.5, 5 years. I never stayed in any place in India for that much time. So it was always going from one to the other, which means which means the family became really the focus, not the things itself, not the house, not the gardens, not the other friends, companions, but the family became the focus and not the others. And it is the rootedness. I think we kind of always think of metaphors as if rootedness means as if it's a plant metaphor, as if people are trees. It may well be true. I don't think people are trees. People can be birds too. I'm not sure about it. I won't say rootedness is that important. Maybe I had to make the best job of it, so I'm saying trees are not that important. Perhaps they are. I really can't say.
I've just stayed in Delhi all my life, and we moved house once, and it was a big thing. So I don't know whether he's like that attached to things around him, like houses or streets or people, maybe family, because family moved with him. But other than that, which I am, so it's quite a strange concept to not be that attached to things around you. Because I am, like, as a person, I'm extremely attached to the house I live in, to the people, the streets. I'm used to it, I like it, I wouldn't want to change it if I could, that kind of thing. So if you have to constantly change that every 2 years, and against your will, it's a different thing if you change it because you want to. But if someone moves, family moves, and you have to, not because you want to, because your father's moving. I don't know whether that is taken, I don't know how he dealt with that. You don't have the questions coming into your thing,
No.
like you can't hear the questions. Then it's okay. Because the questions are different and his answers are very different.
What she was saying
The
was that
answer
I kind
digress
of
so badly.
I deviate
Very nicely,
when the questions I cannot answer or don't want to answer, that I give answers to different questions. I said, it doesn't
So
matter
I was
because
admiring
those
the art
questions
of
are not going
deviation,
to
yeah.
come.
I think it's well done.
I think I'm not nostalgic about my childhood because I have so much of it still going on. So nostalgia is something you have lost. I don't think I've lost it. So I think that is also one reason one doesn't have to be nostalgic. I mean, those memories, those fantasies of childhood still kind of keep on coursing in various ways through it. Yeah.